From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos postgame reaction podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. Ben Grant joined as always by JB as the Argos lose an absolute heartbreaker 26-25 to the Montreal Alouettes at Percival Molson Stadium. JB and I will go through all of the action in this game, what went right, what went wrong, and what happens next. But before we get to any of that, I've got to tell you about Something in the Water Brewing. I've got some really good news from Something in the Water Brewing, and I think some of you need that right now after a game like this. First of all, Longboat Pale Ale has been made even better. The folks at Something in the Water Brewing have changed the process a little bit. It's the same hops that you know and love, but some new additions in the malting process give this beer a lovely finish, and it's now a hazy session IPA, one that I think everybody will enjoy. So if you want to try the new Longboat Pale Ale, the beer that was made for you, for fans of the Double Blue, you got to get down there. You can try it on tap. You can buy cans of it. It has got a great new taste. You got to check it out. The other news, I'm going to follow up a bit more on this next week, but you may have noticed there's been some construction going on at Something in the Water, and that's because they are pairing up with Ghost Taco, and they are going to be adding a taco bar. So it's all awesome stuff at Something in the Water Brewing. Make sure you get down there. Next game, hosting Winnipeg Saturday. Get down there to Something in the Water Brewing pregame to make sure you try the new Longboat Pale Ale. JB, before we get into tonight's action, let's hear the radio replays from tonight's game. Here's Mike Hogan on the call on TSN 1050.
Argos moving from left to right here in the opening quarter, and it will be the very strong leg of Jose Maltos that will get this game underway. And the kickoff is a short one, and Janarian Grant's going to take it at the 35-yard line and get across the 40. So it will be very good starting position as they do mess with their mind a little bit with Janarian Grant. 5.5 minutes left in this tie game in the first half. Ball just inside the left hash mark. 3 receivers to the right. Arbuckle comes near side. Pot for the touchdown. The mayor has opened the council meeting. Touchdown to Devontae Coetzee, the mayor of Montreal, back in the end zone, and the Argos take the lead. 3-man front for the Argonauts. It's 2nd down and 4. Alouettes at their own 48. And it is thrown and picked off. T-time, 40, 30, 20. Knocked out of bounds at the 15-yard line. Davis Alexander saved the touchdown, but Tavares McFadden gets the pick, and the Argos are back in business. It's his 2nd interception, and Davis Alexander is not happy. Arbuckle comes up under center. They'll mark it at the 2-yard line, so it'll be 1st and goal from that point. Right in the middle of the field, they've got a tight end to the near side in John Boss. They'll hand it to McMahon, touchdown! He had a lot of room to the near side, cut it up, took the hit anyway, and gets the touchdown, and the Argos are up by 13. 2nd and 6 from the Montreal 32 in field goal range. They are moving into the wind, but that would not be a problem for Hairolahu distance-wise. 3 receivers out to the right with the ball in the middle of the field. Arbuckle rolling, looking, throwing. He's got a man open at the 20-yard line, and it's Kevin Mittal again. He got hit and pushed down to the 15-yard line, and it's a 1st down for the Argos. They're back in the red zone for the 3rd time. It's a 1st down Argos at the 14-yard line. 2 for 2 in the red zone tonight. Arbuckle back to pass. He's looking for it all on 1st down. He's got Ungerer wide open. Touchdown, Argos. Dave Ungerer could not be any more wide open, and he's got his 1st touchdown of the year. Right now it would be a 63-yard field goal attempt. So they need about 10. They're down by a point. Arbuckle under pressure gets drilled as he throws it deep, and it is picked off. Bento got it at the 30. And he's just going to take a knee, and the Alouettes are going to come back and win this game as Arbuckle got crushed as he threw the football by, I believe, Duquois.
All right, JB, let's get right into it. First impressions after what I think was probably the toughest loss to swallow in the Ryan Dinwiddie era. Mike Hogan and I on the broadcast were trying to think about one that, hit you in the heart a little worse, and I can't come up with another one. Is this the most painful loss in the last few years for Toronto?
Yeah, I think so. I think this was, except for the Eastern Final.
Well, that was the whole that wasn't painful so much as like stunning. Like the East Final lost a couple of years ago, it didn't feel like this. It was just like, what went on? Are those the end of your thoughts?
I think that's. I guess we can make that distinction. Yeah, but I mean, certainly in the last 2 years, this was the worst regular season loss. Just because they played really well, played incredibly well for 3 quarters, and just couldn't finish. And not just finishing, but really just continually shot themselves in the foot in the fourth quarter, and did what not very good football teams do, which is make more mistakes than their opponent.
And it was the timing of the mistakes as well. There are so many moments that you want to look back to in a 1-point loss where you just think, oh, if only this had gone a little bit differently, or what if this had been this instead? There are a ton of them that I can think of. First of all, the one that stands out to me is near the end of the first half, Damonte Coxie streaking down the left sideline, puts on a little move, loses Ruffin in coverage, and Nick Arbuckle with a clean pocket with max protection just couldn't quite get it there to him. He overthrew Coxie. Coxie was gone. That would have been a 70-yard touchdown. The Argos would have gone into the half up even more than they were, and still an impressive first half for Toronto, putting up 18 points, leading 18-7. It would have been 25-7 at that point, and they would have felt very much in the driver's seat. Now, it ended up being 25-7, not too far into the third quarter, and that's where you're just looking to put them away. At that point, 25-7, you really just need one score to put all the pressure on Montreal. And from that point forward, they couldn't put any points on the board. They couldn't even really move the football. And they end with the last 2 possessions going for turnovers. One, a fumble that Nick Arbuckle let get free as he maybe looked to escape the pocket. And then lastly, of course, the game ending with that interception where they were maybe 10 yards from field goal range for the win. Instead, Arbuckle gets hit as he throws. The ball goes in the air. I put that one less on Nick than I do probably on the protection. It was tough. We'll go through that play in a little bit, but which moment do you look back to in this game and say, yeah, if that one play, the Tavares McFadden almost interception on the sideline, which one is it for you that stands out as being the play that you're just gonna lose sleep over?
I think it was the holding on the run
on Nicastro.
I thought that holding. I thought that drive was going to be something. I think they score on that drive, and that ended up being nothing. And then they gave the ball back to them, and then everything, really fell apart after that. So I'm not going to blame him for the loss, but if you're looking for one play, that was the one. That was the one where the momentum really swung, and from that point forward, Montreal just went with a point, with like a point after block, and Toronto did not seem to be able to adjust to 7-man blitzes.
Yeah, let's get more into that in just a second. But before we get to that, did you get a replay of the hold? I didn't get a chance to see it again.
It was really frustrating.
Yeah, I wanted to see.
They didn't show a replay.
And why that frustrates me is that it looked to me like the flag came in from deep on the sideline, and it was a hold on the center on an outside run. It just seemed like a very strange flag to throw from that official. But again, it may have been clear holding. I just never got a chance to actually look at a replay. No,
exactly. I mean, I'd love to say, well, sometimes when you're on the road, you get hosed. That's not an unlikely scenario, but it is hard to. Yeah, it's not great they didn't show a replay. Very frustrating. I kept waiting for replay because it was such a game-changing call, and they never did. So that that was definitely frustrating.
So let's talk about the difference between the first half and the second half. The first half, the Argonauts were able to move the ball fairly effectively. I thought they ran fairly well. I thought they were playing smart offensive football. They got Kevin Mittal involved a ton in that first half. And almost everything was going right for them. They scored a couple of touchdowns, added a field goal and a rouge. And then near the end of the first half, I wonder how much of this comes down to the Anim Dankwa injury. Because what happened with 2 plays left in the first half, Anim Dankwa, who's playing right tackle in place of the injured Ryan Hunter, looked to be having a pretty good game. He missed a one run block pretty badly, but other than that, I thought was holding up fairly well. He went down the second last play of the half. He toughed it out for the kneel down, but clearly was laboring to get off the field with a limp. And he didn't see the field in the second half. Instead, it was John Boss who played at the right tackle spot. I wonder if that was the injury that led Montreal to think, you know what, why don't we test this guy? Why don't we blitz on every play and run some really difficult stuff to pick up and see how Toronto responds to it? And the truth is, Toronto did not respond to it very well. After that moment, they had trouble, like you said, the 6 and 7 man blitzes that we saw throughout that second half. They had a tough time keeping bodies off Arbuckle.
Yeah, I mean, and again, with the guy down, maybe they're not able to run. I would assume they're not able to run an offensive lineman as a tight end. If you want to give some kind of max protect looks, because like in obvious passing downs, I mean, Montreal just brought 7 guys, and it was a jailbreak, and there just has to be a way to deal with that. You just can't, let the other team run roughshod over you. Whether you're going to go, like the fumble was a tough one for Arbuckle, right? Like he has to get rid of that ball. He just can't double clutch there. They're bringing, punt block heat. You have 1.8 seconds to get rid of the ball. You just simply can't look at something and then pump fake, or not pump fake, but not throw the ball and then pat the ball. So it was disappointing that they did not adjust in that second half, because Montreal clearly was able to blitz at will. And Toronto, I assume, just didn't have the personnel to hold up.
They had another offensive lineman dressed in Darius Sirocco. But the thing is, that tight end set that you're talking about, usually it's John Boss that comes in and plays the tight end spot. Yeah. If you're bringing in Sirocco, you kind of have to bump everyone down, and now you've got a lot of moving pieces if you want to run. And I don't know how many reps they've got out of that look. And so I think they're clearly more comfortable going with that 5-man line and not using a tight end there.
I mean, not to bag too much on them or to give any excuses, because you have to win that game. I mean, if you're winning by a couple of touchdowns in professional football, you have to win that game. But that is an incredibly effective Montreal, front 8. And Toronto is, 2-3 men down on the offensive line. It just is not a great combination. Like, there's just no 2 ways about it. That's a very hard place to hold up if you do not have your best offensive line.
And yet they had the lead 25-7 with 1 play to go in the third quarter. They had the wind in the fourth, and it's so painful to go back through all the what ifs and, if only this one thing had been done differently.
That fourth quarter, I mean, they just started making mistakes. I mean, you have, the holding. I'll just have to give it as, like that it was. They had the special team timeout because they didn't have enough guys on. Then right immediately after, no yards. I'm sure coach's head nearly exploded when you follow a timeout with the no yards. And not being able to find some ways to whether through screen or hot route to adjust to those blitzes. Like, there just wasn't time to throw the ball deep. You have to have something to punish the team. Otherwise, teams would just do that every game. I mean, they just brought 7 guys, and there was was an avalanche. All of that stuff. And then to have that amazing play in the end zone be immediately turned over with the turnover, just unacceptable. As good as Arbuckle was for 3 quarters, you simply cannot have a turnover in that situation.
Yeah, that's the one I am going to be hard on Arbuckle for, is that fumble, far more so than the interception, because I think I'm going to put that more on the offensive line and the breakdown there. The fumble, like you said, they had just recovered the football. It's such an amazing play from Derek Sluka to have the awareness to be able to punch that ball out right at the 3 or 4 yard line, and then McFadden to jump on the football, keep it in play, and then go down to take the ball out at the 30. It was such a huge swing of momentum, and it really felt like at that point, if you could even just get a couple of first downs or something, this game's over. And instead, they gave the ball right back, and Montreal was in the end zone a few plays later. The one at the end, the interception, it's tough. Montreal's defense, like you said, is very good. Their defensive front is very good. We saw in the opener, they run a lot of very complicated blitzes. And what happened on that last play, they were showing a 7-man rush, and Toronto had their 5 offensive linemen. They had Deontay McMahon in as the only back, and so 6 in protection. But then Montreal only sent 5. They all took a step forward, and then 2 backed out and fanned out into coverage. And that 5-man rush, because it wasn't where Toronto expected to see it from, ended up with 3 guys getting through. Both Sankey and Duquois were the problems. Duquois was the one who hit Arbuckle as he threw it, and it completely changed the trajectory of that ball. If Duquois doesn't make the hit, if it gets picked up, is that a completed pass on a corner route? Maybe. We'll never know. But instead, it ends up being an interception. And I don't blame Coach Dinwiddie for the challenge at the end. I thought it was really close. I think at that stage, instead of using the timeout in the last series, I think it is worthwhile to see if you can get that call. I thought it was close, but I thought ultimately it's probably the right call not to throw a flag there.
I would have to read the rule book, but he did lead with the crown of his helmet.
But he didn't hit Arbuckle in the helmet. His head.
Yeah. But you definitely cannot lead with the crown of your helmet. Like, there's no chance you're allowed to lead with the crown of your helmet. There's no chance that that's legal.
I know. I understand
he didn't hit him. I understand he didn't hit him in the head, but that was only, that was just fluke. It wasn't like he meant not to hit him in the head. He fired himself at the quarterback, and the quarterback just happened to throw at the last second. But had the quarterback just stood there, he would have impaled him with his head. He just got lucky that the quarterback happened to throw at the exact moment as he launched himself. So I'd have to read the rule book, but I just can't believe that a defensive player is allowed to launch themselves with the crown of their helmet at the quarterback.
It was a violent hit without question, but I don't know. I didn't see that as one where it was an obvious, you have to throw a roughing the passer penalty. So I think that was, it's just more, you have to pick up that blitz. You just can't let your quarterback get hit on a play like that.
No, you have to pick up that outside blitz. He was right there. I don't care about the fake looks in the middle. You absolutely have to pick up the safety who's standing on the edge. Like, you just have to pick that up. If he doesn't come, so be it. But you have to assume he's coming. Why would you bring a safety to the line of scrimmage if you're not bringing him? You have to account for that.
Now, the other side of that is, if it is a 7-man blitz and you've got 6 in protection, the correct guy to leave is the furthest guy to the quarterback's right. It would have been Duquois. And so the protection that they had called was correct in terms of leaving Duquois, except that doesn't really explain why Sankey got through as well.
Well, you just can't. What can I say? You can't play football when there's 4 guys in the backfield. You just can't. You just can't. I don't know what to say. Obviously, as a defensive coordinator, if you can have 4 guys in the backfield, that's a very useful play to call. And you can't just have it happen over and over and over again. That's the kind of thing you usually can do once, right? But not 6 times. They just kept doing it. They're like, why don't we do the play where all of us sack the quarterback? And they're like, yeah, good, let's call that play. You know, you can hold on and do it once, but you just can't allow a team to do it over and over again in the fourth quarter.
A couple other plays where I just felt like the bounce wasn't there for them, because it actually was for a lot of the night. Like, we've seen some bad luck for the Argos this season, losing like every 50-50 ball, and that wasn't the case tonight. You had guys who had just missed suddenly making plays. Tavares McFadden getting back to break up a pass. Darius Bratton break up a pass.
I thought the defensive backs played terrific in that first half. I mean, that was my narrative. I mean, like, I thought they were played physical. I thought they played fast. I thought Bratton was fantastic on that cleanup hit. You know, McFadden, same deal. Great pass breakup. It was a really great first half for the secondary.
But then things kind of turned in the second half. You had the touchdown on the slot fade, where I don't know, like, Bratton just kind of lost with the receiver. Like, there was nothing else to look at. He was just sort of one-on-one.
With that, remind me of that line of, like, I don't know what's worse, like having a player who never does what you tell him, or have a player who only does what you tell him.
Yeah.
He was like, do not allow that inside leverage, and he did not allow anybody to cross his face. Because they did not have help. However, you can't let a guy just run a fade uncovered. So on one hand, I was like, I appreciated his maintenance of the inside leverage, but I guess maybe next practice they'll go over the second part of that plan.
Well, it looked to me like he just lost track of how much space there was back there, because Alouettes are on the 10-yard line. You're kind of thinking, okay, we're in tight now. Everything's got to be in front of me. And
it felt to me like he was like, I'm not going to let this guy come inside me.
Yeah, and maybe that was it.
And they just kept fading, and then he just sort of like kept that that window, and you're like, you can see like, man, you cannot be 10 yards away from that guy. That was poor.
And then a couple of those other, like, almost plays, McFadden with a beautiful interception, he came down with a foot out of bounds, and there was nothing he could have done. It was just, he had to be running that fast over to the sideline, and he had to be jumping to be able to get the ball. There was no way in terms of physics for him to land in bounds, but it was so close.
And obviously, like, even though Sluka cleaned it up, like, that was terrible coverage on the almost touchdown.
Yeah.
There were a couple of nice plays. I thought that double screen that Montreal called was really nice. I'm sure they were sitting on that play and didn't necessarily want to burn it. But I really love that play design that Speaker ran.
Yeah.
Where they had the two running backs went one way, and then the line pulled the other way, and then he kind of whipped inside, and I was like, that's a play we should steal.
Yeah, Aaron Casey was the only one that picked that up, but he had like 5 linemen in front of him as he tried to get to the ball. So.
Yeah, that was a gorgeous play. I'm not going to bag on him for that. But yeah, I mean, there were some bad busts, and McManus obviously was incredibly hobbled in the second half.
Yeah,
which changed again the tenor of the defense.
It was amazing. Like, I was looking for that because you talked about that this week. They were so hard hitting in the first half when he was flying around, and then when he got injured, it just felt like the air went out of the defense somehow. It's not like they stopped, but the hard hits seemed to stop.
It just isn't. There was a play that was, almost immediately after he came out, Darkangelo went in, and the guy ran through the hole, and there was a slow trigger from Darkangelo to flow into that hole. And, and that's the difference. That's the difference between having McManus being the hammer and a guy running for 8-9 yards. So, without McManus there, they really had a tough time with that middle run.
Yeah, they did. And I think they lost Lanier near the end of the game as well. I didn't hear any update on that, but I saw him go down awkwardly at one point, get up very slowly, and I don't think I saw him on the field for basically that fourth quarter. And so you ended up with a 3-man line. They were sort of playing a 3-4 with 4 linebackers out there. And that seemed to be part of the problem as well, to not be able to change that up, to continually go with this three-man line, unless that was part of the plan. But I just don't see why you wouldn't want Lanier on the field more at the end of the game. So I think he's banged up too.
Yeah, the injuries hurt. There's no doubt, but you have to win that game. You have to play a perfect fourth quarter, and they just didn't. There were just a lot of mental mistakes in that fourth quarter that cost them the game.
It didn't have to be a perfect fourth quarter. They just needed to not turn the ball over twice in the last 3 minutes, and unfortunately, and have a bust thrown in there as well.
But we've talked, like, one of the hardest things that they have is there's such a small margin of error for this team with this many injuries.
Right.
They just, and that's where I was saying perfect. I mean, and it is, in fairness, probably too high a bar. But unfortunately, they just can't afford any turnovers. It's what makes it so incredibly hard to win when you have that many injuries, because unless you play perfect, you can't win. And they played a really great, if not almost perfect, first half, barring the bomb they missed, and they just couldn't keep it going for four quarters.
I thought they used the misdirection plays very well in the first half. Remember how we were talking leading up to this, how teams weren't respecting Arbuckle on the rollout? And in the first half, I thought Toronto took advantage of that very nicely, where Arbuckle would play fake and then roll out with the ball and have nobody with him. And so he had a clear screen in front of him, right? Like nothing, nobody's blocking him. He could just stand there and casually make a throw downfield. They did that like 5 or 6 times in the first half. And then Montreal decided, okay, we can't let Arbuckle get outside anymore. In the second half, it was a combination of blitzing and then actually containing and really holding Arbuckle in the pocket, not letting him extend plays and look downfield. And they tried it a few more times, but it just wasn't there. So that was a nice adjustment by Montreal to see that and say, okay, we got to correct this. And Toronto didn't really have a response for that. Didn't have an answer. Other play. Sorry, go on. Yep.
No. I think that's one of the things you run into. As well as Arbuckle has played as the backup, you just don't have as many tools to pull out of the toolbox.
The other play that I thought could have gone very differently was after Letcher Jr. was injured. Looked like he hurt his hand or his wrist. He came out and Tice went back to punt return and he gave the ball away. He mishandled the punt, threw it up in the air. It got knocked backwards. You never, ever see that ball get recovered by the return team. When the ball ends up behind the punt returner, all the Argos were coming downhill towards the football. All the Alouettes are facing the other way, and yet somehow it's an Alouette that fell on the football. And that was deep in Montreal territory. Toronto, if they'd recovered there in that situation, already up, were right on the doorstep. And it would have been an easy field goal, but it probably results in a touchdown.
They needed one more field goal. That just boils down to the offense. You just can't go over in the fourth quarter. They didn't. That's the frustrating thing, is they did not need another touchdown. They just needed one drive that ended in a field goal, and they couldn't get it done.
Arbuckle's numbers on the night, he finished the game 28 of 40 for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 fumble. He also ran the ball twice for 12 yards. His red zone efficiency remains outstanding. I believe he's now, is he 18 of 19 with 8 touchdowns and no interceptions in the red zone? Something like that. Like his red zone numbers are phenomenal, but they're just not getting there with enough frequency. But when they're there, it's a touchdown almost every single time they're in the red zone. They can't get to the red zone enough. But I thought it's a tale of 2 different games, right? First half great, second half struggling.
Yeah, Montreal basically just brought, much like New England did to Atlanta in the Super Bowl when they were down 28 points. They just started bringing 7 guys, and they just didn't adjust to it. I mean, I think it's all it boils down to is, on those plays, there were 4 Montreal Alouettes in the backfield on almost every snap in the second half. So I think it just boils down to, you're down Ryan Hunter, you're down your backup to Ryan Hunter. You don't necessarily have a full collection of running backs you can bring in to run max protect. I think Montreal had the personnel to exploit the fact that Toronto just could not hold up to aggressive blitzing that really, I thought, Montreal did a good job of holding off. Usually teams can't do that in the fourth quarter because they're really tired, and Montreal held off on releasing the horses until the fourth quarter. They did not do it in the first quarter, and I thought that was really smart by them.
Running the football worked in the first half. McMahon, I thought, had a couple of 3 or 4 very nice runs where he just really made a hard cut, and he looked so springy. And then after he got re-injured again, just didn't have that same burst. And LeBourne never really got going as well, except for that one play where there was the hold. McMahon ended up with 7 carries for 32 yards and a touchdown. LeBourne with 2 carries for 4 yards. Kevin Mittal had the 1 carry on the quarterback sneak. The Argos may have dodged a bullet there. That was fumbled, but they ruled that forward progress had already been stopped, and so gave Toronto the first down on that play. But they couldn't really run the ball in the second half because, like you said, there was so many bodies on the line of scrimmage. There just wasn't room to, and that's what they needed an answer for. Receiving, no huge plays. There was not a single 20-yard or more play from anyone on offense. The biggest play, Ungerer with a 19-yard reception, but everything was under 20 yards. Not one explosive play for the Argonauts offense, and they just badly needed one. They took a few shots, and not a single one of them connected on those deep attempts, and none of the runs quite burst through. The longest run of the day was 10 yards. Mittal had an 18-yard reception. Ungerer, as I said, with a 19-yarder. DeVaris Daniels on his only catch for 17 yards. He was close to getting a deep one, too. Again, it was one of those bounce things where he beat his man in coverage. It was a good throw from Arbuckle, but it just hit the back of the wrist of the Montreal defender instead of Daniels being able to catch the football. And then they had that deep miss to Coxie as well. And then, of course, the deep miss to Mittal at the end.
And again, I think when you take a step back after the disappointment of how close they came, I do think there are positives to take from this. You're on the road. You're playing probably, I would say, arguably, probably not even arguably, definitely the best team in the East. You're very competitive with them. You should have beat them. I think that there are positives to take from this. You did not get the doors blown off you, especially after that Hamilton game. Montreal is certainly as capable, if not more, than Hamilton of blowing the doors off you. Toronto, it wasn't like the Ottawa game where they got a bunch of fluky plays and they got a lead they didn't deserve. For 3 quarters, Toronto was the better team. So I do think when the frustration of letting a game slide away goes away, there's some consolation on that. But, depending on how the games go this week, you're getting into that danger zone where the pack is going to be a lap ahead of you and you can't come back.
Let's just take a quick look at the defense before we sign off here, JB. The leading tacklers, Mark Milton, Cameron Judge, each with 6 tackles. I think some of the positive stats defensively were the number of knockdowns. You had Sluka with a knockdown, McManus with a knockdown, McFadden with 2, Bratton with 1. So the DBs getting their hands on the ball. And then you had the interception from Tavares McFadden, almost 2 from McFadden. I thought it was
an improved game for the defensive backs.
Yeah, they played a good game. The linebacker situation is is very interesting because I really like Aaron Casey. I know he had that no yards penalty on special teams. He's still like brand new to this league. They're trying to find ways to get him on the field. They used him a lot as a pass rusher. They used him off the edge, almost like a D end, because they need him out there on the field. Like you want McManus and Casey and Judge all out there, and Dark Angelo too. And there's just not a lot of CFL defensive sets where you've got 4 linebackers on the field. And I think that's maybe why we saw some of those like 3-4 sort of looks, 3-4 sets. But they need to sort of figure that out because they've got this wealth of talent and depth at linebacker and no real. It's just hard to use them that way.
Yeah, I like Casey too. I think McManus obviously is in rough shape. I don't know how sustainable that is moving forward. So it's hard to look at it. I mean, will he be fine? Can he shut down for a while and be better? I don't know. I think it's hard to have somebody who can't play the full game at 100% at that position. It leaves you in a problem. So that's certainly very worrying. And defensive line wise, they have to get somebody who can eat up space, who can two gap, who can occupy 2 people. They just need more beef on that line, and easier said than done. Obviously, they lost a lot of people, and Holly's in Cleveland, so that's definitely some of the consequences of winning a championship. Is the year after you're going to be thin at some different positions, and that's definitely what they're experiencing.
And for the team leading the league in sacks, with the sack leader on their team, they did not get home once. No sacks of Davis Alexander.
No,
they got close, but not enough.
Too many. I mean, I'm sure the defensive line coach will go bananas watching. Like, there were a lot of guys running past the quarterback. Like you can't run 12 yards down the field trying to sack the quarterback. Like, where are you going? It's like, I understand you're trying to get around the offensive lineman, but if you're 14 yards down the field, that's not really of any use to anybody. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely edge setting and pass rushing stuff that needs to get cleaned up. But I think priority one is, what are they going to do with that offensive line? Clearly, you can't bring Chad Kelly back with that offensive line. I don't know what they're going to do, depending on what the status of the injuries are.
I would argue Chad Kelly will make the offensive line better because I think the defensive line's job becomes a lot harder, and you're worried about the passes deep downfield. You can't maybe take the risks that you're taking. Like, I think Chad Kelly tonight, with Montreal blitzing 7 every snap, finds a way to get that ball out quickly enough and makes these quick completions with that ball velocity that allows his receivers to make plays before the DBs get there. So I don't know that we can necessarily say the pass pro will look the same with Chad Kelly back there, but it doesn't make you feel comfortable, certainly, putting him in there, knowing that he's obviously not 100% right now. He may not be 100% this year. So at what point do you feel comfortable putting him in? We'll have to wait and see. We'll maybe finish up just quickly with special teams. I thought it was a little bit of a disappointing outing from the special teams unit. I thought Montreal did a great job of just not letting Janarian Grant factor into the game. I know they took penalties to do it. They decided to punt instead of kick a field goal because I think they were worried about Grant back there. He was in their heads, but to give them credit, they limited his returns. They kicked short. They didn't let him get up to speed. Whereas on the other side, Letcher Jr. with 3 punt returns, averaging 22.3 yards per return. That's obviously a problem. And, on the other side with Grant, averaging 11.5 yards per punt return, averaging 12 yards on kickoff returns. And then, of course, they chewed up a timeout in the process there, too. They got a no yards penalty. All in all, it was, I thought, a tough day for special teams.
Yeah, Grant did not look fast tonight. He didn't seem to have what he had in the other game. He did not look twitchy.
He doesn't have space. I don't feel like he could ever really get going.
Maybe, but I thought the difference between him and the Montreal returner was pretty stark in terms of the twitchiness. I just didn't feel he looked very dangerous. I mean, you do have to look dangerous. You're not always going to get tons of space. He looked dangerous last year. He didn't look dangerous tonight. I didn't think.
That will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. The Argos falling to 1-5 with a 26-25 loss to the Montreal Alouettes. You can catch the Argos next week at home as they welcome Winnipeg for the first half of a back-to-back. The first game on Saturday, July 26th with a 7 o'clock kickoff. Hopefully we see you there at BMO Field. And of course, you can always catch all the action on TSN 1050 with Mike Hogan and myself on the call. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe, foe, foe.